Welcome back, and thank you very much for choosing to stay with us on Ebru TV. Of course, remember, it is Lifestyle Thursday. It's an easy day. It's mid-morning. I hope you're grabbing your cup of tea or coffee and a slice of cake, because the conversation we're going to be having today is quite interesting, and you certainly have a few questions. If not, you might want to relate whatever we're talking about with yourself or some other people that you've known or you've read about on the media. And of course, that's about antisocial personality disorder. Now, of course, this particular topic is quite interesting, especially in this day and age where we have COVID-19, and sometimes you really don't want to, you're actually told to maintain social distancing, stay at home as much as possible, try as much as possible crowded places and all that. But how do you connect that and draw the line to see that this is normal and this is it's not a disorder, or it's not leading you to a certain direction and ultimately crumbling your relationships with other people? And so I am joined by two beautiful ladies who are very experienced in their field, and I'll start with my nearest right. I have Caroline Gaithuma, I hope I said it well, who is a life coach and has been in the industry for 5 years, and her story is absolutely inspiring, but I'll allow her to introduce herself shortly. And then, of course, I have Alice Kamundi, who is a psychologist, trained psychologist, knows her field and her craft, and she will be shedding some light on this particular topic. But first things first, how are you doing this morning?
Awesome. And cold.
Yes, it's quite chilly, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about, okay, let me start with Alice. The whole antisocial personality disorder.
Right.
Break it down for us. What exactly is it?
Antisocial personality disorder is, as it says, it's a disorder which is clinically diagnosed. And a disclaimer, antisocial does not mean that you're not social. It means that you go against the social rules and laws. So it will be things like being truancy, being aggressive towards other people, not caring about other people and hurting them for your own pleasure. So antisocial personality disorder, also known as aka sociopath. Yeah.
A sociopath.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And that's quite a strong word, because, I mean, you've actually said it's diagnosed. And does that mean then that one cannot be able to just declare themselves, oh, I have antisocial personality disorder, like the way many young people nowadays, you talk about depression, it's the center topic of discussion in media, and they say, I'm in depression, I have anxiety.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? You need to find a practitioner to actually declare you?
Right. You need to find a practitioner who is trained and certified, meaning a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist who are trained specifically in diagnosing disorders, because there's a criterion that they use and treatment plans that they use. And for you to say you have a disorder, or antisocial disorder, personality disorder for that matter, it's not a dichotomous kind of diagnosis. It's continuous, meaning you have to have portrayed these behaviors for a very long time. And it starts from a very young age. Some of the disorders that are seen as a child, one of them is conduct disorder and oppositional defiant disorder, which, if not treated at that point, that is when it will now culminate and becomes APD, antisocial personality disorder. Right.
Now, even at the childhood stages, can you perhaps share what are some of the symptoms that parents can be able to identify? There might be a problem, and it's time to take my son or daughter to see a doctor.
You're right. We'll start with conduct disorder. This is usually seen in the pre-developmental stages, so probably from age 4 thereabout. You'd see a child who is being defiant, doesn't want to listen, who is destructive. There's truancy as well. At school, they're always at loggerheads with the teachers or with other children, or they're bullies, and they're not remorseful or show empathy towards their doings. And it is continuous. It's not one time, right? And that's why we say, even for parents, while they see their children behaving in certain ways, we're not necessarily saying now, yes, you have ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, or conduct disorder. It's about having a continuous assessment and learning what it is that ticks them off and what doesn't tick them off. Is it something that is always there, in short? So from ages 4 to about 17. So that is when you can be diagnosed either for conduct disorder or opposition or defiant disorder. For above age 18 is when you can be diagnosed for antisocial personality disorder, right?
Right. I just want to loop you in, Caroline. Being that you are from a background where you do speak to a lot of people and help them in their transformation journey, one is above 18 and they're being diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. What next? They want to get their life in order. They want to try and get, you know, to be normal, so to speak, you know, within whatever that actually means. What would you advise this person?
In most cases than not, somebody who's been diagnosed with such a disorder will not want to get help because they probably don't think they need it most of the time, because we're talking about a sociopath. And a huge aspect of this disorder is the lack of empathy, lack of remorse. And I think we can loop in psychopaths there as well, meaning that they have an inability to connect with people. Sociopaths do actually connect, but they don't care about the consequences of their results. Psychopaths, on the other hand, are very manipulative and they know how to work emotions up, but they don't connect. They have no empathy, but they can act. They mimic empathy. They don't have it. So most of the time, what we do with such people when a family has a person who has been diagnosed with that, it is the family to go and get help so that they can set boundaries and so that they can learn how to protect themselves from harm. Yeah, because you find that those people are, and most of the time they are diagnosed at that early age. But then what happens is they just go along with their cycles, and then maybe around 50 years or so they begin to get better. And most of the time the people you get coming to get help are brought in by families, and they are brought in because of maybe their, you know, their aggressive nature and their inability to control themselves. Maybe they are raging. And so in that way, then the psychiatrists come in and gives them medication to sort of calm themselves, you know, to calm them down. But when they're just without the aggression and that impulsive rage, they will not bring themselves to a coaching session.
And then what is the role in terms of, you know, just the support system, the family, the friends that are around this person's life? What role do they play in terms of even trying to help them?
I think the best way that they can help them is to help themselves. And this is what I tell people, because some of these disorders are diagnosed with people who have maybe an addiction, for example. And they're using that to manipulate people around them to get what they want. So they keep crossing boundaries with people. And so I say, if you want to help somebody, help yourself first. Think about your life and what you want, what boundaries you can keep, what safety you need, how you can think about this person, because once you have a certain awareness about who they are and what they're going through and how they think, you're able to relate to them in a way that causes less friction, that triggers them less. So I think if you want to help somebody, you need to help yourself first. Yeah.
Maybe Alice, unfortunately or fortunately, you've not been diagnosed with a condition at a young age, and now one has transitioned, they're old enough, they're adults, and as she said rightfully, that sometimes they don't want help because they don't think they have a problem. So then at what point do you draw the line and say, now it's gotten out of hand and this person absolutely needs help and intervention? And if you look at also our setup, culture-wise, is that something that people need to come to terms with? It's existing, and or, you know, because for example, in the some research shows that in the last 3 months alone, we've had more than 400 people committing suicide, and those cases are underlying cases such as, you know, anxiety and depression and whatnot. But we've not, as a community, come out to speak openly about it up until recent times.
Correct.
So where do you draw the line in terms of knowing that now you need help? And secondly, what can the community and society around do in order to help the person before it's too late?
Right. I'll first start with, at what point do you realize you need help? If you are self-aware and you understand that what is going on with me is not normal, and the people around you probably don't feel safe around you, it would be time to start having that conversation and try to find a support system, be it at church, be it your community, be it your family or friends. those are areas that you can tap into as resources for self. If you look at the society today, we are stigmatized when it comes to mental disorders or mental illnesses, and this only makes it much worse. You're not able to come out and feeling safe to say that I am struggling with depression or anxiety. If you look at APD, most of the comorbids are usually, she had mentioned about substance abuse. That is one of the comorbids, and other personality disorders. So you can have APD and something else. So if it is comorbid like that, it's even more worse. And if you have substance disorder, the first thing that will show is that probably you're always drunk or always high on whatever substance that you're using. And that will be a pathway of getting you into therapy and finding the right people to actually work with you, because not just anyone is able to work with mental disorders, yeah, because it's a disease and it needs proper treatment and proper management. In addition, the family should be looped in to be given resources and skills and sets on how to handle, first of all, the patient who is in the family and how it has affected them as a family. There is shame, so you probably tend to isolate yourself or not feeling the need to speak out. So it will only become much more of a stressor, first of all, holding on to that that baggage or that strain of you have someone who is ill. Secondly, having to hold on to you cannot express yourself freely without stigmatization. And when it comes to disorders, it's not just a one-time assessment and you're said, yeah, you're sick. No, it's something continuum. So it's not dichotomous, again I say, it's not the present or absence thereof of the disorder. It's a process that is very rigorous and needs to be taken very, very slowly and carefully, because the chances of misdiagnosis are very high, and we wouldn't want to put or label someone, you have this disorder, yet that is not what it is. In recent times now, especially during this COVID period, there are a lot of environmental factors that are termed as risk factors. Financial issues, there's high rates of divorce and separation at the moment. People are dying. There's a lot of grief going on. So we are handling so much. And some of us are predisposed genetically. So you might have had a certain disorder, but it hasn't erupted. But once you're exposed, hence environmental risk factors, now it explodes. And you did not know about it. So you could have a disorder and not know about it because probably the protective factors protected you from being exposed, quote unquote. So while you are so vulnerable and you did not know that you had a disorder, it's something new, right? So it's something that you need to start exploring slowly, but very, very carefully. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that you have to start exploring it yourself. How do you begin to do that? You know, finding out more about yourself, what your limits are, whether you may have a disorder or not. And you've also talked about something very interesting in terms of environment. Your environment can now bring out some predisposed genes that you had that you didn't know that you had before.
Yeah.
So perhaps you can just talk briefly about how then environmentally, the effect that it has on bringing out some of these disorders, and then how you can begin to actually work on it in terms of, you know, getting on that recovery path. Yes.
Environmentally, we can talk about the people that you associate with. Probably you're raised by a parent who had APD, right? That already exposes you, because the kind of language that you're spoken to, it's internalized while you're growing, right? So you're programmed to understand this is how people react, this is how people respond. Of which also it's quite debatable, because now there is the aspect of genes. You genetically, if you have someone in your family who has APD, probably second, third generation, someone else will have it. So it's understanding your family tree. We call it the genogram, understanding first generation, second generation, and third generation. What kind of diseases had been there? What kind of issues are there in my family, both sides, your dad's side and your mom's side, and just try and understand that more to give you more information of, are you predisposed? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's understanding where you come from and understanding yourself and your environment, the people that you're associating with, and what kind of language did you grow up with as well. So those are environmental factors.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that path to recovery.
She mentioned something very important and very critical to any recovery process, and that's self-awareness. How self-aware are you about your thinking patterns, your emotional patterns, your habits, your experiences? I find that most people are sort of somehow detached from their own life experience, and there's a way they don't see themselves the way others see them. And so the first thing is to begin to look at what effect you have to people around you. What are your dominant emotions? What are your dominant thoughts? And just keeping it real and thinking about then how do I want my life to be? If there's a discrepancy between how it is and how you want it to be, then it's important that you get yourself into a situation or a partnership where you can explore that more. And that's where coaching comes in, because coaching helps you to become more self-aware. And if you find that there's something that needs to be addressed, either medically or through psychotherapy, then you get the relevant therapy that you need. And there's something that she mentioned about where it all begins. Again, it's about understanding your past is very important, because if you look at, she's talking about generation and our genes and our family setup. We have just recently started diagnosing mental disorders. So what we know from our past is behaviors. Your guka used to be like this, your shushu used to be like this, and probably it was a disorder, but nobody knows it was a disorder. It's just, they were like that, and it's acceptable if I'm like that because I'm named after her,
Yeah.
and it's just, a trait. It's not seen as an issue. So when you're looking at these things, you need to begin, and I tell people, you don't even need to have a label. You don't even need to know what it's called. As long as it's not serving you, as long as it's costing you happiness and joy, you need to address it. Because again, what I've seen is I get sometimes some clients come in and say, oh, I was just recently diagnosed with bipolar or ADHD. And so apart from the aspect of managing, now they have another layer of identity. And when you bring in the layer of identity and you own something, then I have to act like that. Then I have to make an excuse using that, you see. So that's why I feel like we work hand in hand.
That's
because
true.
I'm giving you, she's managing whatever it is that you're dealing with, and I'm keeping your focus on what do you want your life to be about. And in spite and despite of what you've been diagnosed with, can you create a life that serves you? Yeah.
Take me through the process. I know that you've mentioned that it's more, you of course you need help,
Yeah.
but what's the process? How does it look like when you're trying to identify what your dominant thoughts are, what your dominant emotions are, and how other people see you, that you might be, because you are the picture in the frame, you might not actually see
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
What does that process look like if it's an individual who would want to self-evaluate themselves?
Okay, so for me, the first thing I go for when I'm working with someone, I ask them to start journaling. Because a lot of the times you will not remember what happened last week unless you wrote it somewhere. So journaling helps at keeping a daily journal that says, okay, today, this was the most intense emotion that I felt. Whether it was negative or positive, you journal it. These are the most memorable conversations I had. And you can journal the memorable conversation based on the intensity of the emotion or the discussion that happened. So with time, you'll be able to see a pattern. And with that pattern, you can be able to ask yourself, okay, so where am I in all this? Because most of the time, when you don't see a pattern, and that's why self-awareness is important, if you don't see a pattern, then you don't see the need to change, and you have no commitment to change because you feel that you are just okay. And most of the time, you find that people want to be accepted for who they are. And people are saying, you know, if you can't handle me, too bad, you know. But then they're not looking at what is the cost of how I'm being. Most people don't understand that identities are just a set of ideas about who you are, and you can change and shift them based on what you want out of your life. So if this being the way you're being is costing you to block everybody, it's costing you to call everybody toxic, then you need to ask yourself, is it me or is it them? And then begin the process of, let me understand this situation, what's really, really going on. And then you'll be able to pick the points where you can go for therapy for, you know? Yeah.
Now, it's interesting you brought up something also in this conversation, and I'll loop you right back in. You've thrown a word there, toxic, which in this day and age, a lot of people have misused and have abused completely. And maybe you can shed some light on what actually, how it should be used correctly. And when you talk about pattern, for someone who is journaling every day and is taking time to reflect and now just go through the last maybe 2 weeks of their life, we're looking at the generation we have now, the youth who are constantly on social media. They're spending more time on Insta and Facebook and Twitter than they do maybe, you know, just making real meaningful relations with people. How can they be able to take advantage? Because many of these cases also that we see are among the youth, and they do form the bulk of the population. But despite the fact that these are some of the solutions and recommendations, they still might not find it appealing to actually take action in this manner to solve any problem that might be brewing at the moment. So maybe you can just briefly talk about those two.
So first and foremost, I say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So if you have no destination, then you get into any mat or any cab, and you'll be good with wherever it's taking you. And so in life coaching, I come from the perspective of, let's first understand, what do you want your life to be about? Then we are working with that. And we are like, okay, so what thoughts, what emotions, what habits, what rituals, what behaviors, what relationships will get you there? So we are not just saying, oh, this is not acceptable. We are not just saying, everyone does this, so let's do this. We are looking at what's the destination and how can you get there? What do you need to shift and change around yourself so that you can get there? And so I find that when you lack that destination, when you lack a goal or a vision or a mission or a purpose, then you have no need to do some of these things. They're actually a bother. You know, you won't need to journal. For what? Then after I've read for a whole month, then what? You know? So we have to start with creating that vision and that goal. And what was the other question?
Oh yeah, toxicity.
Yes. Oh, that's among the very many words that people are using. She mentioned about, you know, how people are saying, you know, I have this disorder. Even OCD. You hear people saying, I have OCD. Who diagnosed you? You know, most of the time it's thrown about as an excuse, to be excused from a certain habit, to not take responsibility or not be accountable for some stuff. So I want to tell people, it's not, let me tell you guys, I've had an issue with mental disorders. I have been a patient. It's not easy. You don't just throw around a word like that I'm this. Because what happens is there's something in your subconscious mind that is unlocked by your own voice. Yeah, you say, I am this, and then you start to become that. It's like open sesame, let's be this. She has decided this is her identity, let's be this. You start suffering anxiety attacks, you start seeing the world through a different filter because you are slowly becoming that which you're calling yourself. So look at yourself and say, I mean, even when you go to therapy, some people go to therapy and they already have diagnosed themselves. They just want the therapist to confirm.
Put a stamp.
You know? Yeah, I just want you to confirm that I'm depressed. No, just go and say, this is what I feel for the last 1 year, for the last 6 years, this is what I've been feeling. This is how people are responding around me. This is what I am thinking most of the time. and then let the psychologist do their own assessment. They have tools to do that, and they can tell you that it is this or it is that. Now, when it comes to things like toxicity, who is a toxic person? A toxic person is somebody who probably doesn't respect your boundaries, somebody who probably consciously triggers you, like somebody manipulates you emotionally. But when you hear the word being used, it's just somebody mmekosana. That's a toxic person. So you're not even looking at, maybe you're the one who is overstepping their boundaries, and when they respond, then they become toxic. Yeah, so it's about, it's being self-aware. And I find that most of the time you're saying somebody is toxic, it's because you yourself don't want to deal with something. Because if you had boundaries, you wouldn't care whether they're toxic or not. This is my boundary, you stay on your corner. I don't have to label you. Yeah.
I like what you're saying, and I would wish that many people are actually listening to this because it's quite informative. But maybe I can get back to you, Alice.
Yeah.
Do you think that this depression personality, anti-personality disorder rather, is reversible? And of course, you have mentioned it's a work in progress towards, you know, even diagnosing it and then now treating it. But is it reversible, or is it something that you're doomed for with the rest of your life? Even if you work on it, maybe it only reduces. What is the medical way to actually say about this?
See, with mental disorders, it's mostly about management and understanding where it is you're at and how to navigate through life with the diagnosis, right? It doesn't mean that you have to be it and part of it. It just, the parts of you that are struggling, what tools and resources can you use to help you navigate through life? So in short, it's more of a lifetime condition, but it doesn't mean that you cannot be functional. You can still be functional and while managing the disorder itself. So yeah. You can actually pull through life.
Okay, that's very interesting. So
Yeah.
it's like saying, I know very well that I have a disability somewhere.
Yes.
Let me just use that word.
That's okay.
And nothing can really, it's not that nothing can be done about it, it's just that what can I use to help me live life?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it's not the end of the world.
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
Which is so enlightening because
Right.
then it puts off so much pressure,
Yeah.
that heavy weight that maybe you might be carrying and thinking, oh, you're less of a person because of that. It becomes easier. But then what are some of the challenges that maybe people who have been diagnosed with this face?
Most of the clients are always trying to compare themselves. They're like, why is it me? So it's the burden of, I have it, why is it not someone else? Why does it have to be me? So the existential crisis kind of questions that they ask themselves, and they will struggle through with, I'm not able to concentrate as someone else is able to. I'm not able to wake up in the morning. I'm not able to finish tasks. I'm not able to. They usually focus on what it is they're not able to do, other than what can I do with this to help me move from here to there. So most of the struggles is just making peace with it and accepting that this is a diagnosis and it's okay, but it doesn't mean that it's the end of life. Yeah. And it's only human to feel so. Yeah. Yeah. You feel isolated, but then it doesn't mean that there's no one else who is struggling with something else in their lives. It's just that this is your struggle.
Yeah.
How do you deal with it? Yeah.
Okay, there's something else here. Antisocial personality disorder. So this personality, there are many types of personalities that we've come across. You know, those who are one certain way, I don't know, melancholy and all those. Another test even shows 16 different types. I think that's a Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs.
And so the question is, do some personalities maybe predispose you or make you more likely to have that, the disorder, or is it that it's not connected in any way? Because maybe if my personality type is, I don't know, it was ENFT with the Myers-Briggs or something.
Yeah.
Does it mean that maybe I might be more likely to get, of course, antisocial personality disorder, or that's a myth and it's a fallacy?
That's a myth. Yeah. But to touch on it, probably if you are a very introverted person, then you're diagnosed with perhaps bipolar or a depressive disorder. It will be more heightened, only more so because it found you as a very closed person. So when you're in that depressive state, it's even more, and it will be even harder for you to seek help. Yeah. Not to say that now because I am an INFJ, ENFJ, or whatever it is, it means you're predisposed to get a certain disorder. Yeah.
Okay, Caroline, let's talk about something that you mentioned, which was very important, that people often make excuses. They don't want to be responsible and decide, okay, I will label other people all these names, but I'm the problem, and being accountable. You know, that seems to me that that's a person who is developed, personally developed. Oh, they've been working on themselves for quite some time to reach a, I don't know, maturity or whatever that level looks like. How does one begin to develop themselves and their character to a point where then, you know, they can not only, they can be able to take responsibility for their actions.
Yeah.
And you've talked about your vision, your mission, your purpose. That's where you you begin with every time a patient walks or someone walks in to procure your services.
Yeah.
So many times I think the young people have heard of mission, vision, and purpose in a company, and they think, okay, why do I need to write down a mission, a vision, a purpose? And maybe I'll forget about it anyway in the next 1 hour because I am always on social media. So how can we help, or how can they get help where, you know, there is a gap?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, first and foremost, it's really an interesting question that everybody should ask themselves about: how did I come about? Not this physical form, but my psychological form. Because she mentioned something about conditioning. She mentioned something about genetics. And it's really about understanding who you are. If I find this object here and I don't know what it is, I will know what to use it for, you know. So you get to a place in life and suddenly you want to achieve some stuff. Now you stay connected to your desire, and then, you know, most people are just being swept around by other people. You know, these ones are doing this, so I'm going to go ahead and do this as well. And until you reach that point where you're like, okay, so what am I here to do? That's when you can begin that journey and begin to ask yourself, so what are the obstacles in my character? What are the obstacles in my genetics? What are the obstacles in my psychology that stop me from getting this place as fast as I want to get to? And one of the things that is very, very important for people to understand is that a huge part of our psyche, of our psychological self, our sense of self, is formed between the ages of 0 and 7 years. And if you don't understand that that was somebody else's and an environment shaping you, then you're going to use that to not get to what you want to get to, you know. So the question is, okay, so how was I shaped? You know, what are the things that have caused me to see life the way I see it, to see myself the way I see it, to see others the way I see it? Because like this antisocial personality disorder, by the ages of 4, if a child is still biting you and hitting you and crushing things, and, you know, that says something. And sometimes it's a brain defect, sometimes it's the genes, sometimes it's a trauma, you know. But then when it's not addressed at that point, they embody it as their way of being, and they start getting this oppositional, you know, whatever she was talking about. And as it progresses, because remember, as yourself, you know yourself, and we always say, this is who I am. It's because of that pattern of experiences and that pattern of behaviors that have told us that this is who I am. And that's what, it's like a zone you've created, and you say, this is who I am. So when you want to start making a life for yourself, when you want to start enjoying life, living a fulfilled life, you need to start from there. So how did I come about? What are some of the things that I say are me? And are these things helping me be more fulfilled, be more happy, create healthy relationships? And when you can see some of those are not, then I tell people, don't think you're stuck with it. you can come and begin to find your way either to eliminate it or to go around it. You know, as I said earlier, I went through depression, so I have, you know, a depressive disorder, but I have what I want to achieve. I have what I want my life to be like. So if I wake up in the morning and I can't leave the bed, then my struggle is not how am I going to leave the bed, because I know that's a, that's a huge struggle that will put me down. I'm like, what can I do while I'm here on this bed? You know, so if there are emails that I can do, if there are calls that I can make, if there's delegation that I can do, then you see I've found my way around it. So there are things you know that you'll be able to eliminate with the help of a therapist, with the help of a coach. There are others that you will be taught skills. So it's like if you burnt your finger while you were a child and now you're minus one finger, are you going to live the rest of your life mourning about that one finger? No, you're going to learn how to do your life without that one finger. So it's the same thing. So you need to learn where are your challenges and how can I overcome them or go past them, and who can help me. Yeah.
Maybe I can just loop you in on this, because you've talked about something very important as far as, you know, understanding who you are. But in an article, or actually there is this author, I think he might be someone in the tech space, he's called Simon Sinek, and he says, you know, begin with the why.
Okay.
So why is it important? Why should they care? Actually, yes, we can see that it's important to find a vision, a mission, a purpose. You know, maybe it'll give you a sense of direction. It might go changing as you grow older. But why should you care? Why should the young people care and bother? I mean, definitely the easiest answer for them might be, okay, we want a job. So now if we write down our mission and vision and purpose, it will make us more maybe directional and intentional. But really, why? What is the core reason and purpose for caring about all of that stuff anyway?
Right. Mental health in total. I like what you said about your why. It's understanding your why, because that is where your core value and core essence of existence lies within. And we care because, I mean, the reason as to why you want to continue with life or live in a certain way, there are reasons behind it. There are things that motivate you, which are informed by your society or your spirituality, your family values, whatever it is that moves you and puts you in a place that you want to be at. For example, if we look at patients who are struggling with probably substance abuse, it's not so much the substance abuse that's a problem. It's they don't have a why, and they don't know how to go get their why or to understand their own why. And most of the reasons, it's usually fear-based, shame-based, and not knowing as well. So if we give ourselves a chance to actually speak out and create something we call universality, where we understand that everyone is struggling with something, and you can identify with someone else who is struggling with something, that way you get a support system. And in the tech world, it's much easier that way. And something that I've come to appreciate during COVID time is being able to connect with people worldwide. During classes or webinars, and that way you have a more broader perspective of what being a human being is. The epitome of it is just basically being a human being, first of all, before you start tackling the rest of the things that come in life. Yeah. So
I really like something that you said.
Yeah.
Everyone is struggling with something.
Yeah.
Universality. And sometimes people, or maybe the younger generation, can think they are in this isolation, or it's just they're the first ones in the world to feel it.
Yeah.
And maybe partly, I think the media has presented people in maybe either sometimes in a very perfect light, or the world is a very extremely bad place. So
Correct.
It's two extremes, and not that.
Yeah.
And not that there's actually in between, there's a life,
Yeah.
and you can have normalcy. But there's some questions that have come in from our viewers, and thank you once again for watching. I'll start with Nyokabi. Nyokabi from Kayole is asking, can shyness just be mistaken for being antisocial?
No. Remember when I said it's not absence or presence thereof you're diagnosed. No, it's continuum. it's looking at noticing when are you shy, what makes you shy, what is it that holds you back from being able to speak out whatever it is you want to speak about or express yourself. And also, age is another factor. Also, gender is another factor. If you look at it, boys are more allowed to occupy space because, yeah, socially, you have the support. But women, when you're loud or when you express yourself, you are labeled as something not very good. Yeah. So it's not to say that you have APD. No.
And I think also there's this misconception of what antisocial is, and I think she addressed it at some point.
Yeah.
Antisocial is you're going against the
The
social
laws.
norms, you know, like you are, you know, crossing people's boundaries, you don't care about people's rights, you are hurting people intentionally. That's what antisocial is.
Yeah.
Antisocial is not that I'm not social.
Yeah, you're going against the social
Yeah.
norms and laws of the society.
Right. Excellent. I'm loving that. More comments are coming in, and something that you mentioned, you've added 2 more points. We earlier discussed on environment, and now you brought up gender and age, and we'll get back to those two. But there is another question that's coming in. Okay, well, I'll start here. Hi, Lucy, a new face. Where is Aziza today? Agnes Monica from California, still loving the show. Thank you for watching. Aziza, unfortunately, is not feeling very well, but she will be with us next week, same time, same place. Now, the question is, hi, ladies, looking good, as always. My question to you, how do you deal with an antisocial child who isn't even comfortable around family, leave alone outsiders? Right. So where do we begin? Please, kick us off.
Okay. Child. That, red flags. Mainly because if you find a child who is not so much being, not being social, but they're being reserved. They're being reserved maybe because they don't feel safe. That is something the parent should explore. Or they're being bullied at school or at home. There's an aspect of lack of safety. Yes.
And that's a huge one.
Yeah.
And it's not just
It's a red
physical
flag. Yes.
safety,
Emotional
even emotional safety.
and mental.
And mental
Yeah.
safety, yeah. If they feel they can't be themselves because children are just bubbly by nature. And
Yeah.
especially around family, they feel at ease.
Yes.
So you need to interrogate what is really going on in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that has to be very gently, because if then you come out so strongly at the child, it will be like, oops, I did something wrong by being the way I was. So they'll only withdraw further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they need to look for a child therapist, because they normally, or a play therapist, because children easily express during play, and those therapists are really trained on how to understand, maybe from how the child draws and on or what they pick to play with, they'll be able to tell exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting, right there. And I like how you're saying they need to investigate and just find out what the problem is. Perhaps it could be the parent or the guardian themselves that's created an environment that's not quite safe.
Yeah. Okay, something else before you continue. If the child perceives that one of their caregivers is not safe, they might respond like that. So it probably might not be about them, but because of how the adults in the house treat each other, they might feel like, I'm not safe here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Another question here. Love the content on this show. Good job. Great panel with amazing insight. Thank you very much. That's Mora from Kitengela. Thank you for watching. Another question is, hi, Ebru, looking good. I think you ladies look fantastic today. It's Musembi from Kitui. Thanks, Musembi. Can a mental illness be cured? I think maybe we've mentioned it, but perhaps just talk about it again. Can a mental illness be cured?
Mental illness is not so much about curing. Again, it's about management. Yeah. Not to say that you cannot be functional. You can still be functional while still undergoing therapy or seeing a psychiatrist. Yeah. So it's about management.
It's about management. All right, next question. I just discovered I'm a narcissist. Can you please address that? I I think
How
the
did
state.
they discover?
How did they? Okay, that's
in
the
fact,
first thing.
that's the first
Right.
question.
But in the event that they perhaps were diagnosed,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe in their diagnosis they weren't given any solutions or remedies or recommendations, just as an example, then what exactly would they need to do to address that?
Right.
And how actually would they identify if they didn't have the courage to walk up to a professional just to maybe self-diagnose?
Self-diagnosis, that's a big no. Big no, no, no. The best thing is you can do a lot of research online about narcissism and find articles just to understand what it is about. But also, if you don't want to have a face-to-face, now we have virtual. There are companies that offer virtual therapy or over-the-phone therapy, but be sure that it's someone who is actually trained and certified as a clinician. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
fantastic. So you really have to just find someone who is qualified, and then they will be able to walk you through the journey to, work with and live with whatever condition it is that you might be having. Another comment here. Hi, afternoon, Ebru peeps. James from Utawala. Okay, it's Utawala. Interesting. Your show has great information. Thank you. Where is our girl Aziza? Of course, Aziza will be joining us next week on the show. I'm sure if she's watching at home, all your viewers and fans are wishing you a quick recovery. And so we hope to see you again next week. Now, this question on our Ministry of Health.
Yes.
Okay, we've talked, do we really have the capacity and the right equipment and manpower and skills to be able to, address this problem in the society, not just maybe antisocial personality disorder, many other disorders that are eminent and present in the society that we don't talk about, or maybe we do talk about but don't give so much airtime on the media.
Okay. Something that I have come to appreciate what the MOH is doing now, it's the implementation of mental health task force, and they're doing a lot of awareness and bringing in practitioners from all sides of the country and putting them in very reachable areas. Something that probably we need to expand is around, probably have clinics for purely mental health in every other county, the way we have Mathare. Let it not be stigmatized. Yeah, that's for crazies. Maybe that is why people shy away from mental health especially. So it's something that we are now starting to embrace as Kenyans. And what COVID has done for us is that we have seen there is a need to actually address mental health issues. Very, very dire. And we need people who are trained and probably have more better training institutions that are, see the way you have medical school, let's have mental health school. Yeah, that is where people come in and get trained and then dispersed all over the country. That way we'll be able to actually nip some of these things in the bud, because it starts from very, very young and where you're predisposed and how you're programmed while growing up.
Yeah. I just want to mention that I think at every level 5, there's a psychiatry space, and I find those to be very cheap, especially for people who don't have, because managing mental health is very expensive. Very expensive, especially the medication bit. It's scarce. You get a prescription that you can't get, or it's very expensive, and you have to take it long term, and it has effects that need other drugs and management. So I feel that we could use the resources that we have, but I feel also that as a society, as communities, we need to come together. And instead of just party after party, think about our mental health. Because if our mental health is not good, then nothing else will be good. You know, our kids will grow up in spaces where they are highly traumatized, they are more likely to get disorders, and you know, we create a society that we won't like in a few years to come. So think about what you can do for your own self and for those around you. Yeah.
Right, fantastic. Just a few more comments I'd like to read here on questions. Of course, we only have about 5 minutes, my director's telling me, but hopefully we'll just go through them real quick.
Okay.
Hi, Lucy. Set looks nice. Angela from Bamburi. Oh, Mombasa. Thank you for joining us. I am having trouble with my boyfriend. He tells me I have OCD just because I like things organized and they should not be moved from the place I keep them. Help, please. Can we just discuss that for a minute or two? Yes.
Boyfriend diagnosis.
Not even that, but there's a need of labeling and trying to diagnose someone just because you have certain kind of characters. And again, even when you're going in for diagnosis or treatment for whatever symptoms or presentations that you have, it's not just a one-time assessment, it's continuous. So no, she doesn't have OCD, and probably it's something about communication in the relationship, so they should understand each other. Let's respect each other. This is how I like it. And just have a way of understanding and forming boundaries in the relationship and respecting them.
Yeah.
I like what
Because OCD is, I mean, somebody who has OCD has lots of anxiety. She would know if she had OCD, you know?
Right. It would be sorry.
She wouldn't need to be told.
Yes.
It would be something that's actually stopping her from living her life normally.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
and I like that earlier on you actually talked about something something very interesting, and it was about responsibility, how you have the need to brand people, label them.
Yeah.
It's because maybe there's a problem with yourself, so perhaps
You don't want order, so you want order, you have OCD. Yeah.
Interesting. So Angela from Bamburi, that's word from the experts. You probably don't have it. You most likely don't have it. It's just something that, of course, you need to have a conversation with your boyfriend. Now, someone else here. Hi, Lucy. Love the topic. You guys look good. Play me a song from Khalid, Sharon from Wanye. So don't worry. We'll play you that song, hopefully, just after this. Kolo, following you. Fantastic. Another question is, I think Google, well, it's more of a comment. I think Google lies a lot. One time it told me I had cancer and heart attack.
Yes.
Let's talk briefly about Dr. Google.
Yeah, Dr. Google has not seen you, has not, taken your vitals, and is not within you. So many times the reason why we are going to Dr. Google, we have our own anxieties and our own fears. And just go to a professional, because a professional is a human being who has certain questions. You know, Google is just a list of symptoms. And if you want to see something, you will see it, you know. So just go to a professional who can actually have a conversation with you and can refer you to whoever and can take relevant tests and can connect you more with yourself, because the more you're connected with yourself, the more you're able to have your own sort of internal guidance in terms of solutions and all that. I find even people going to Facebook and it's like the house is on fire and you're typing there, what can I do? And you're the one in the house that is burning. You know, somebody's like, my child is this, what guys should I do? And I'm like, you should be on your way to the hospital. So let us not be so detached as to think that we can just type in and get a solution and take it. Sometimes you'll get a scare. So just look for a professional and get the correct diagnosis.
Yeah. Right. Perhaps we can just give some closing remarks, because unfortunately our time is literally up. I'll start with yourself, Alice Kamundi. Maybe just remarks about generally disorders, and maybe not specific to antisocial personality. And as you can see, generally the feel is that, you know, there's a lot of people out there branding or calling each other this and that. People are trying to look for solutions. They want solutions and their questions answered, but for one reason or another, they might not be able to always get them. For whatever reason, it could be a limitation financially. That's why some opt for maybe Dr. Google. It could be fear that's stopping them from taking the step. Maybe just a parting shot.
For any mental disorder, or when you feel as if you're presenting some of the symptoms, the first person you're supposed to see is a mental health practitioner. That can be a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist, a counselor who can actually refer you to a more well-equipped clinician who can deal with disorders. So let's not label each other. That is very dangerous. And having a mental disorder, it's not something you wear. It's not something fashionable. No, it's actually a disease, and there are people who are actually struggling with these diseases. So taking it lightly and as a joke, it's first of all disrespectful too. and it's taking the seriousness out of it. Yeah. So if you feel that you are presenting with anything that is concerning to you mentally, seek medical, what do you call it?
Intervention?
Yeah, medical
Consultation?
intervention.
Yeah.
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 Don't diagnose yourself. Don't use Google. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And please, Caroline, finish us off with some words of advice, especially in relation to, you know, being a life coach. You've worked with so many people in their journey, and you've talked about something very important, which is, you know, detaching yourself, coming from a professional point of view.
Yeah.
But now from someone who is watching at home and they would really want to know how to get their life in order, sort of start doing some of these good recommendations you've made, like for example journaling and reflecting on your life and so on and so forth, to just help you work and live normally with whatever abnormality that you might have, which most people in the world actually have. Yeah.
I mean, I want us to just be cognizant of the fact that a lot of the skills that we need to manage our emotions and our thoughts, we are not taught. It's like it's not in the curriculum, but we are somehow supposed to know it. And so I say that getting a coach, and this is not advertising myself, it has saved my life literally, because that's how I've managed to live even with depression without medication, and because of the process that partnership brings into my life. So if, like most people have a doctor they go to, they know that if something is happening to my child or myself, I don't know if it's a broken leg or a sprain, I'll go to a doctor. Get yourself a partner who can help you begin to get the skills of getting the thoughts and the emotions that you need to live a fulfilling life. Don't do this on yourself, you know, alone. And that partner will tell you, go for therapy for this. You're dealing with this trauma. You're dealing with this, you know. Because when it comes to mental health, that's the first thing. Because if you're not mentally healthy, what else can you do? What else can you contribute? You deal with your mental health even for the sake of your generations. Because children who are brought up by people who have unstable mental health, they get these disorders in future, you know. So think about it as a critical aspect. Get yourself into a partnership that will get you. If you can't get a coach, go online and sign up for those things that give you the skills and the ways to cope with normal life, because normal life is stressing. So how do you manage your stress so that it doesn't get to serious things? And of course, take advantage of all the resources that we have as a country and as a community. Yeah.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you very much, ladies. Your time has been absolutely valuable, and I'm sure our viewers at home have gained so much knowledge and information, especially on things that are sometimes myths or fallacies, and they've been able to clear them out. And such topics I think we should have more regularly in order to just demystify and clarify, because people clearly do have questions on this area. So once again, of course, Alice and Caroline, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show this Thursday.
Thank you for having us.
Fantastic. And my dearest viewer, thank you once again for staying with us for the entire 2 hours. I know it's not been easy, but it's been a wonderful morning, especially if you started off with that cup of coffee or tea and cake like I mentioned. But now it's time for our 1 o'clock bulletin. Of course, once again, I'd just like to say that my colleague Aziza Hashim will be joining us, of course, tomorrow. Today she was not feeling well, so we were just stepping in for her. And of course, we do thank you for being loyal and watching. My name is Lucy Riley, and up next is the 1 o'clock news. So do stay with us and continue to engage with us on all social media platforms.